Have you ever been invited to a Serbian wedding? If not, sooner or later, it's gonna happen. And before you go, it's good to cover some basic things you need. Because Serbian weddings are usually an all-day event with a lot of food, music, dancing, and a lot of traditions. So it's good to be prepared and to know what to expect.
This is Serbian in 5 minutes. Short, simple lessons where you learn real Serbian, the language people use in everyday life, shaped by culture and real moments.
Let's start with these two words, venčanje and svadba. What is the difference? Venčanje is the wedding ceremony itself. It can be građansko venčanje, a civil wedding, or it can be crkveno venčanje, a church wedding. Građansko comes from grad, city, and crkveno comes from church, crkva. So it can be građansko venčanje or crkveno venčanje. And we have svadba, which is the celebration itself. So it is party, food, music, dancing, and everything that comes along. In most of the cases, people organize all three in one day. Građansko venčanje, crkveno venčanje, and svadba. But technically, they're not the same thing. Let's meet the main characters. We have the bride, mlada, which also means young, right? That's also an adjective. Mlada, bride, doesn't necessarily have to be young, but we still call her like that. You can also use two older words, nevesta or snaša. But today they're almost forgotten, so we just say mlada. For groom, we use mladoženja. Comes from two words, from a combination of two words, mlad plus ženiti se, ženjen. That means young plus to be married, to be with a woman. That's a verb that we use for male form. When you want to say that a man is married, you would say oženjen, but we will come to that. So mlada and mladoženja. After mlada and mladoženja, these are the most important people. These are kum and kuma. Kum is usually translated as best man, and kuma is a maid of honor. Traditionally, many families kept the same kum for many generations. Not, of course, necessarily the same person, but a person from the same family. So, for example, if your grandfather had kum from one family, your parents might choose someone from that same family as well. And then when it's your turn, you should choose somebody from the same family as well. Today, that works slightly different. Today, people usually choose their best friend to be their kum or kuma. But what hasn't changed is the importance of that role. And to get an idea how important kum is, I will tell you an old Serbian proverb that says, Bog na nebu, kum na zemlji. So what is God in heaven, in sky? It's kum on the earth. That's how well respected kum is. Kum becomes part of your family. Now, what's the structure of a Serbian wedding? What's the timetable you can expect? What comes first is usually okupljanje gostiju or okupljanje svatova. Svatovi is just an old term for gosti, for guests, because guests at a wedding are called svatovi. When you arrive as a guest, it's very, very common to have hićenje svatov. That means that you're gonna get either a decorative flower or a rosemary or a bracelet if you're a woman or a badge that's being attached to your clothes, and that actually shows that you're a guest there. Usually it's very polite to leave some small amount of money to the girls that give you that. Something like €5, let's say, but just in dinners. Now, one very old tradition that some people do respect, some people don't, but it's not even important. It's good just to know an idea of that. This one is called kupovina mlade, buying the bride. And you're not the one who is buying the bride. It's, of course, groom and his family, his friends, his kum. So they come to the bride's place and they want to get the bride, right? But they need to offer something for that. So they offer some small amount of money. They start from that, or some treasure, let's say. Then bride's family needs to negotiate and needs to refuse to give bride away. So I would say that's a game that both families play, and not only families, but all the guests at the wedding. So you're not really buying the bride with money, of course. It's just an old tradition, and today it's all about getting a good laugh, being happy, and maybe relaxing the atmosphere a bit, because bride and groom are probably a bit nervous at the beginning. So try to participate, try to follow what happens, try to get a good laugh, and don't overthink it. Don't take it too seriously. I know many people judge that tradition. Of course, some long time ago it used to be different, but today it's really just about having fun. What comes next is usually crkveno venčanje, church wedding. Sometimes it happens that not all the people, not all the guests are invited to crkveno venčanje, or even if they are, they're not really expected to come then. Of course, you can if you want, but it's not necessary. Usually people leave it for their closest relatives. But again, there differs from pair to pair, so maybe just ask around and see who is going to the church wedding. If most of the people are going, of course, you should go. But if you hear that only their families will come, then maybe skip that and go directly to the party. After that, usually all the guests gather at a restaurant or maybe some other place where the celebration takes place. In a restaurant, people usually nowadays have građansko venčanje. So a person from a city hall actually comes to a restaurant and marries the couple. So this paperwork and formal wedding is done there. After all the weddings, all the ceremonies are done, usually comes prvi ples, first dance, first wedding dance. And usually people just gather around the couple and enjoy watching them dancing. After that usually comes bacanje bidermajera, throwing a bouquet. Usually a group of unmarried women gathers, sometimes even teenagers, or maybe sometimes even girls, and tries to get bidermajer. When you get bidermajer, that means you're going to be the next one to get married. So sometimes women really take this very seriously, or of course, some women just step away. It depends, but don't be surprised by any. And then finally, žurka, party. And trust me, Serbs do know how to party. Now, two questions come up very often. What to bring as a wedding gift and how long to stay at a wedding, because it really does take a whole day usually. Well, let's see. Let's cover what to give as a gift. So in Serbia, it's usually not anything for household, not a blender, not a coffee machine, not a vacuum cleaner. Usually it's just money, novac. How to give money and where to put it? Well, just buy some nice envelope and a nice congratulations card and put the money together with the card in that envelope. At the wedding, you're going to see for sure a box meant only for that, for leaving these envelopes. Usually it's a very well decorated box next to the place where you take photos with them, so you're going to see it for sure. How much money? Well, it depends from a lot of things. Are you close to that couple? Are you just friends, distant relative, distant friends, whatever? Maybe just double check with somebody else who is going, or maybe just check on the internet how much does the place in that restaurant cost. So give at least that amount, or maybe a bit more, or maybe double. How long to stay at the wedding? Because it usually does take the whole day. Well, again, it depends on a lot of things, but usually people wait until the cake. When the cake arrives, if you're not that close to that couple, then many older people, many people who are not that close, leave after the cake. Cake is usually later in the evening, so it's really polite to stay until the cake is there. The word for cake is torta. And with torta usually come trubači, trumpet players. Just be prepared for that. You're going to enjoy it for sure. And how to congratulate? Well, you can use a few phrases. We usually say čestitam, which means congratulations. Čestitam. You can say neka je sa srećom. May it bring happiness. Let it be with happiness. Neka je sa srećom. You can also say, which is maybe a bit of an older phrase, but very common, neka je srećno I dugovečno. Let it be happy and long. Dugovečno is an old word again, but as I said, many people use it still. Neka je srećno I dugovečno. You will definitely see that Serbian weddings are much more than just a ceremony and much more than just a party. It's a combination of all of that. If you're a foreigner attending a Serbian wedding for the first time, just try to feel the atmosphere. I had many of my students at my wedding. They all told me that they just enjoyed watching other people and hearing the music, watching the whole atmosphere. So try to relax and just be part of it. People are going to be super happy if you participate in any possible way. Write me some of your impressions if you ever went to any Serbian wedding. And hvala puno I vidimo se uskoro. Thank you so much and see you soon.